Hi, I'm Buzz Feiten, and I'm here to tell you about the Buzz Feiten tuning system. The Buzz Feiten tuning system is the result of an experience I had in 1992 where I became extremely frustrated and dissatisfied with the way my guitar is tuned and intonated. I was on the road in a sort of a high-pressure situation intonation-wise, and I was very dissatisfied with the way my guitar sounded. And so every night I'd go out on stage for sound check, and I'd listen to the piano tuner tune. And with no tuner, he managed to get this keyboard with 88 notes sounding just wonderful every night. And yet my guitar with only 6 strings, it sounded terrible every night. So at that point, I sort of threw away the rule book and I said, you know, I'm gonna get my guitar to sound good to me so that it sounds right to me, and I don't care if it's following the rules or not, because like everyone else, I would have my guitars tuned and intonated to the standard method, meaning having the open strings read 0 on a tuner and intonating the 12th fret pitches also to read 0. And every time I did that, I'd have problems between chord shapes. One chord shape would sound good and another chord shape would sound terribly out of tune. I'm sure that anyone that's ever tried to intonate a guitar to the standard method has experienced the following problem. You'll set everything up by the book, you'll make everything read 0 on a tuner, and you'll take the guitar off the bench and you play the following 2 chords, and this is what it'll sound like. The bar A chord just sounds perfect, and then you'll play a bar D shape and it'll just sound dreadful. Does everybody hear that? Bar A sounds perfect. The bar D, it sounds really out of tune. So the first thing you do is you reach for the tuner and you try to flatten that B string to make your bar D chord sound in tune, and you start the cycle of endlessly chasing your tuning, chasing your tail, trying to fix the tuning from chord shape to chord shape. Let's try those same 2 chords on the guitar equipped with the Buzz Feiten tuning system. The bar D, the bar A, the bar D, the bar A. I'm sure you can all hear that both those chord shapes sound pleasant on the guitar equipped with the Buzz Feiten tuning system. Before 1690, keyboards used to be tuned to a specific key, depending on the key that the composer wrote the tune in. For instance, if the composer wrote the piece in G, the piano would have to be tuned to G, which would allow the player to only play in the key of G or a related key, E minor, A minor, B minor, and so on and so forth. It was very limiting for both composers and keyboard players. So in 1690, this very clever German guy by the name of Johannes Werkmeister came up with this very ingenious system which took these pitches, which were zeros, and adjusted them slightly flat or sharp, and for the first time it allowed the piano player and the composer to modulate, to play in different keys. And in fact, Bach wrote a series of pieces called the Well-Tempered Clavier to demonstrate Werkmeister's new system. The Buzz Feiten tuning system borrows the philosophy of Werkmeister's system in that we take the commonly accepted system of tuning and intonating everything to 0, and we move these pitches very slightly to resolve the chord shape problems that we demonstrated earlier. Let's listen to some intervals on the guitar equipped with the Buzz Feiten tuning system. 5th, 4th, 3rd, minor 3rd. One more time. 5th, 4th, 3rd, minor 3rd. Does everybody hear that all of those intervals sound pleasantly in tune? They all sound in tune to the ear. Well, guess what? They're out of tune. Technically, they're out of tune. In the same way that Werkmeister's pianos are out of tune. Werkmeister's system, by the way, is the commonly accepted intonation standard in the Western Hemisphere. So let me explain what's going on here. Now, I played those 2 intervals between the G and B string, which is typically a terrible problem area on the guitar. I get more complaints about those intervals between those 2 strings than anything else, and my own experience bears that out, that I had more trouble getting the G and B string to agree with each other than any other strings on the guitar. Let me explain what we're doing here. When Werkmeister developed his system, he realized that one of the geniuses of his discovery was that he recognized that the human ear will tolerate the pitch adjustment of a perfect interval, meaning a 4th, 5th, or an octave. In other words, we don't notice if a 5th, 4th, or an octave is slightly sharp or flat. However, the human ear will tolerate no sharpness from a third, a sixth, or a tenth. In fact, we prefer, as humans, to hear those intervals where the third is flat to the fundamental. Okay? So what Werkmeister did is he borrowed small amounts of pitch from perfect intervals, meaning fourths, fifths, and octaves, in order to so-called sweeten up the thirds, the sixths, and the tenths. The Buzz Feiten tuning system uses the same techniques, and let me describe the way we do it. On guitars equipped with the tuning system, we intonate our B strings either dead on to themselves or slightly flat to themselves. In contrast, we tune our G strings flat but intonate them sharp. So let me follow me on this, because this is exactly what Werkmeister did. He would take a fifth and he'd flatten it very slightly so that when he played a third using a different key, suddenly that third would sound more acceptably pleasant, because the human ear wants to hear the third narrower than it wants to hear the fifth. So if on the Buzz Feiten tuning system we've tuned the B string to itself, but we've intonated it either dead to zero or slightly flat to itself. In contrast, if we take the G string and it's tuned to, let's say, -2, but intonated to +1, okay, what have we done to this interval? We've narrowed it, because the G string is playing a little bit sharp to itself. The B string is either playing dead on or slightly flat to itself, right? So if the G string is playing slightly sharp and the B string is playing slightly flat, we've narrowed this interval. But listen to how much it improves the third. Everybody hear that? And yet, hear the fifth? The fifth still sounds good. Everybody agree? So that's what we've done. We've been able to identify these very small windows of opportunity that we have to sweeten up some of the problem areas on the guitar.